the reason that we're seeing this happen in Kano State, and of course, the very first thing that you hear the next morning is that it suddenly needs renovation, and needs to be demolished. Same thing happened in River State. Is because, and I did say it a couple of days ago, Nigerian governors are emperors. They do as they choose and nothing stops them from whatever decisions that they take. Even the courts. The courts can make rulings, but they will take actions that they want to take. And of course, they're protected by immunity, so there's nothing that you can do to them. So that's the reason you hear stories like this, where a governor can decide randomly that he feels like he needs to demolish government property or traditional property because, well, it suddenly needs renovation. That's the reason. But aside that, my challenge with the whole situation that we're talking about here is, once again, pointing out how much the Nigerian judiciary still needs a lot of cleaning up. There's so many issues across the whole country that the Nigerian judiciary just seems to get itself muddled with these issues. And it's just embarrassing, seeing the way things turn out. The reason that you have a duplicity of court rulings, from River State to Ondo State to Kano State and every other state in the country, where you have a federal high court getting itself involved with traditional matters that should be handled by the state courts, where you have court rulings, status quo this week, status quo next week, status quo the following week. It is just a complete mess, and it really just paints a picture of how messy the Nigerian judiciary is, as much as it has gotten itself involved with politics. We find these days that judges and people who should be held to the highest esteem involve themselves in messy politics. And that's why we see these things. You don't hear, for example, when Donald Trump decided that he wanted to build a wall, or when some other American president decides that they want to evict people from the United States, just one court ruling is enough to take all of that apart, and of course put a hold to whatever decisions that the president himself wants to make. Court rulings in different states are enough, but here you can have 19 different court rulings in 2 weeks, and it's a mess. It's an embarrassing mess, and I don't feel comfortable with where we found ourselves, and how much our judiciary seems to get itself involved in this mess, pouring palm oil on its whites every 2 weeks. But those are my thoughts with regards to this, but we will x-ray further what's going on in Kano State today. We have guests joining us to let us know, of course, shed some clarity. There's different, views. Kano State government has interpreted the ruling one way. The Bayero family has interpreted it a different way. We'll x-ray it further today.
Let's begin breakfast headlines in Nigeria, where in a landmark decision on Thursday, the Federal High Court in Kano has nullified all actions taken by the Kano State government aimed at repealing the Kano Emirates Council law. The ruling, delivered by Justice Abdullahi Muhammad Liman, orders all parties involved to maintain the status quo, effectively halting the government's efforts to dismantle the existing legal framework governing the Kano Emirates Council. The court's decision comes amid significant controversy and public debate over the state's move to appeal the law. Hundreds of supporters of the dethroned Emir of Kano thronged his mini palace at the Gidan Serkin Nasarawa area of the state, dancing and celebrating amidst traditional fireworks in reaction to his victory at the Federal High Court. Though the celebration was carried out within the confines of the mini palace, following an earlier ban on street protest by the Kano State government, there was heavy police protection for the supporters to prevent a breakdown of law and order. Protesters on Thursday stormed Kaduna Government House, asking Governor Obasani to invite the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission and other relevant agencies to arrest and prosecute his predecessor, Nasser El-Rufai, over an indictment of 423 billion naira misappropriation. The protesters, in huge numbers under the aegis of Kaduna Citizens Watch for Good Governance, trekked from the popular UTC bus stop along Sokoto Road to the main entrance into Sir Kashim Ibrahim Government House, Kaduna, in the state capital. The Abuja Electricity Distribution Company says it will soon respond to allegations of extortion by the residents of the Akonakpa 1 community in Karu local government area of Nasarawa State, north-central Nigeria. News Central Television had reported that the community accused the electricity distribution company of not providing electricity for 2 months following the breakdown of their transformer, and despite raising about 22 million naira to purchase a new one, the company shockingly told them it will not be reimbursed. Now, our crew had visited the AEDC headquarters, where the company appealed that it should be given 24 hours to investigate the allegations. A high court in Akure, the Ondo State capital, has nullified the creation of an additional 33 local council development areas by the administration of late former Governor Oluwarotimi Akeredolu. The presiding judge, Justice Adebusoye, who delivered the ruling on Thursday, declared the creation of the LCDAs unconstitutional and illegal. Recall that the Ondo State House of Assembly had passed the bill for the creation of the 33 additional councils on August 15, 2023, which the former Governor Rotimi Akeredolu signed in September last year. Now, away from Nigeria, Burkina Faso's junta leader, Ibrahim Traore, has denied any dissent in the military's ranks as he visited a state media compound near the presidency where a rocket landed last week. Traore, who came to power in an October 2022 coup, spoke at the grounds of the state-run television network where a rocket fell on June 12th. Traore also attacked Western media, describing them as lying and manipulators. After the visit, Traore chaired a cabinet meeting. And that's all on Breakfast Headlines. Now it's back to Osauge and Olive.
Thank you very much, Dashin, for bringing us Breakfast Headlines. We'll be joining you again at 9 a.m. for the news.
Thank you, Olive.
All right. And this is still Breakfast Central. You can continue the conversation with us on social media at News Central TV. We'll go on a break now. When we return, more stories to be looked at. As the nation awaits President Bola Tinubu's executive bill on the new national minimum wage to be presented to the National Assembly, citizens have called on the federal government to reconsider its early stance of paying 60,000 naira to workers. Some spoke to our correspondent in Abuja, saying that the federal government has enough resources to pay workers more wages, and urged those involved in the negotiation to take a second look at the plight of citizens. Marvelous Obomanu tells us more in this report.
The tripartite committee, made up of organized labor unions, organized private sector, and representatives of the state governments, have been sitting for over 3 months to resolve the impasse between labor and the federal government over its demands for a living wage. While the federal government is insisting it will pay the sum of 62,000 naira against the 250,000 naira being proposed by labor, this many citizens have frowned at.
One day, Nigerians will react. And when Nigerians react, nobody will stop anybody. Paying someone 60,000, 62,000 naira, you look at what is happening in the country. What can that money be able to buy?
For 62,000, it's not so much of a good increase when it comes to what it was and what the present realities are. So I think the previous minimum wage was, I think, about 30,000 or so. And when you look at that, that's like, let's say, a 100% increase. But when you also look at the prices of commodities in the market, cover that, we're talking about 200, 400% increase in literally everything in the market.
We need to work on how to reduce the amount collected by the people at the top and see how it will help to balance the imbalance we have in the economy, and see how the sectors like price monitoring control will come into play.
The minimum wage is not the main priority. I think the main priority Nigerians are facing now is hunger. If the government can make a way of kind of subsidizing the food stock in Nigeria, because if you look at it, no matter how much the amount of money you will be paid, it's insignificant, because if you go to the market now, you can't buy anything.
With the announcement of a new minimum wage imminent, some citizens are calling on the federal government to take a second look at its proposal and adjust in view of the current realities on ground, especially the rising cost of food and services in the country.
The first 2 days they said we should embark on the strike. We all know, for me, I'm suspecting that immediately after that 2 days, like I told my colleagues, that 1 week extra they're talking, they're coming back. If there is no agreement, I said it will not hold any longer. At least I've been in service for the past 30 years. I came all the way from Lagos, so we've been seeing labor strikes. But immediately labor start getting meeting with the people in the presidency. More or less, most times they are patronized. Once they are patronized them, they will relax. As far as I'm concerned, they have already relaxed.
The man that is called the labor leader, we don't even know what he is doing. He is dancing around. Today he will do this, tomorrow he will do that. Let him stand firm. Let him stand firm, like Adams Oshomole. Adams Oshomole stood on his ground and make sure that the workers at least benefited something. But this man is dancing. Tomorrow you see him in Asorok. Next tomorrow he say we have resolved. Tomorrow he will go back to Asorok. The other day he say he has resolved. That is not the way to do.
Although many experts have been speaking on the possible economic impact the new minimum wage will have on the economy, citizens are demanding a new wage that will reduce their hardship. In Abuja for News Central, Marvelous Oboman.
Thank you, Marvelous, for that report. We will be following up with the story because, of course, the citizens deserve to have a wage that reflects their current living realities. But now let's move away from Abuja to Ondo State, where the People's Democratic Party, PDP, in Ondo State chapter, has announced the expulsion of former Deputy Governor Philip Shaibu from the party, citing anti-party activities. Shaibu was the Deputy Governor before Godwin Obaseki before his impeachment. Shaibu was impeached for allegedly leaking classified government documents, amongst other allegations.
This comes after Shaibu declared his support for the opposition All Progressives Congress candidate, Monday Okpebholo, in the upcoming September 21st governorship election in Ondo State. The Ondo State Working Committee of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, also confirmed the expulsion of the National Vice Chairman, South of the party, Chief Dan Obi, and the immediate past member representing Uredo Federal Constituency, Omoge Ogbedehama. Joining us now is the President, African Public Interest Lawyers Union, Honorable Andre Adeze Nwata. Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Osaroge. Good morning, Olive. It's a pleasure to be on the program this morning.
Good to have you join us. Interesting developments there, of course, after Shaibu was impeached as deputy governor, now he's been kicked out of the PDP. What are your thoughts? Does this show, division within the PDP, or is, do you see this as the PDP really just, taking actions that were necessitated by Shaibu's recent actions?
Yeah, thank you. You must agree with me that PDP, just like Achebe's book, Things Fall Apart, where the quotes of YB, he referred to it as things fall apart, the center cannot hold. May anarchy is loosed upon the world. PDP as a party, as I speak to you, is completely empty. In my local government, for instance, the party structure led by the leader, Lusa Adams, the entire ward leadership, this local government leadership moved into APC recently. And I think it is this drove of members going in their thousands into the APC that has become a nightmare of the governor. And I can tell you for free that the big masquerade behind these, I will say, shambolic, expulsion of Chief Danobi, who is the South Vice Chairman. And just to say that on the 19th of June, the Federal High Court had given an order restraining PDP from taking any steps towards impeaching, either suspending or expelling Chief Danobi, who is their South Vice Chairman. And unfortunately, just as an afterthought, some ragtag members of the State Working Committee of the PDP in Ondo State quickly announced his expulsion, not to make it look like a standalone. They mentioned the name of the candidate of the PDP, or the aspirant that contested against Obaseki in 2020, who was at that time a member of the House of Reps, Ogbedehama, who is a strong force in PDP, and the deputy governor, of course, who naturally, when you look at Shaibu is in court. He's challenging his unconstitutional impeachment. So they are just trying to weaken them.
Permit me to interject.
weaken them.
Are you trying to say that the main target of this action by the PDP is Dan Obi, and that the rest are just to make it look like a normal thing, and that he's the main target?
Obviously, Olive, and I will give you the specific facts. This matter has been in court. There has been a plan by Obaseki to make Dan Obi lose his position as the leader of the party. Because before Obaseki came into the party in 2020, of course, at that time, I was a PDP member, who were the ones that took Obaseki in. And coincidentally, it was June 19, 2020, that Obaseki joined the PDP. 4 years later, on the 19th of June, 2024, the Federal High Court in Benin restrained the party from suspending the person who brought Obaseki into the party. And Obaseki told his lackeys in the party structure to announce the expulsion of Dan Obi, who gave him a roof over his head when rain was beating him. I mean, that's the story of an ingrate. Hamapi Osaroge referred to emperors, I mean, the governors of states, operating as emperors. If you ask me, the number one emperor governor of Nigeria is Governor Obaseki. It was because of him I left the party last year. And as I speak to you, there are 4 litigations challenging the candidacy of Akure Akeredolu. And Shaibu is involved in one of them. And I think if somebody is challenging the candidacy of a person, it means that he has not accepted that person as a candidate of the party. So if they have any contrary view, I think the proper path to two is a part of reconciliation, is a part of peace. You are expelling a member of the National Executive Committee of the party. Danobi is a member of the National Executive Committee of the party. If they are not lawless people, Article 57, sub 7 says only the National Executive Committee of the party can discipline its members. So you find that these are just a band of lawless members of the PDP. Chief Danobi is even in court. You want to institute disciplinary actions against a person who is challenging his unlawful impeachment as deputy governor. You didn't even set up a disciplinary committee. They should go and read Article 57 of their constitution.
I want you to, Mr. Wanta,
talks about the role of the disciplinary committee. That committee was not set up. It was because there was an order of the Federal High Court that morning. That was why in the afternoon they gathered together, about 9 of them, and started announcing people's expulsion. Where is that done?
Okay, this method of discipline.
Subjecting them to the disciplinary committee of their party. I mean, PDP is gone. And I'll quickly bring to your attention a video that went viral yesterday, which of course is everywhere in the internet, where the governorship candidate of PDP, Akure Akeredolu, said the party has been factionalized, that when he came in, he thought, that there was peace in the party. There were 4 factions. Akure Akeredolu, PDP candidate, identified the legacy faction, the new PDP, the old PDP, and the Obaseki PDP. I mean, I'm using his exact words. Then he said after he came in, they became a new faction, the 5th faction, known as the Philip Shaibu faction. So if a party has 5 factions, can you take that party seriously? So for us in the APC,
all right, hold on, Mr. Wanta.
Celebrating.
Mr. Wanta, kindly hold on.
Mr. Wanta, you've mentioned something that I'd like you to highlight on. You've talked about the process by which you think this should have been handled. There should have been a disciplinary committee because the matter was already in court. I want you to, make a comparative analysis of some sort with the case of Nyesom Wike, who was also accused of anti-party activities by a number of people. Would you say that this was a process that was done in his case? Just sort of analyze that, vis-a-vis this.
Thank you for that observation. I think I was supposed to be very specific in saying that Article 57 of the PDP Constitution outlines a procedure for discipline. Rule 1 says that the party must have a disciplinary committee. That's Rule 1 of Article 57. Then Rule 2 makes it mandatory for the disciplinary committee to be set up for the purpose of disciplining any members. And that disciplinary committee can be set up at any level. It can be at the National Executive Committee level. It can be at the State Executive Committee level. But because there was an order on the 19th, as an afterthought, they just immediately announced the expulsion without setting up or referring the matter to the disciplinary committee. And even Article 6 talks about fair hearing, that for the National Executive Committee or any other organ of the party to take any decision, the member must be notified and he must be given an opportunity to make his representation. All these things were not done, right? Then if you are to compare this with the Wike scenario, of course, the party permitted Wike to be part of the Tinubu government beyond the fact that Wike indicated his interest to support the presidential candidate of the APC. And the reasons were very clear, namely that the National Party chairman at the time worked against him. He called Tambo and others who worked against him at the grounds of the primaries as hero. And for him, he told him that he no longer enjoys the confidence of the members of the party. And there was an unwritten agreement that the moment the presidency goes to the north, the chairmanship should come back to the south. I mean, in the spirit of zoning. At that time, there was pressure for the national chairman to step aside. It was his failure to do so that made Nelson Wike and 4 other governors of the PDP. Even one of them, Sheyi Makinde, is still a 7th governor of the PDP.
Yeah, so are you Mr. Iwata, just to clarify.
Presidential candidate of the APC.
Yeah, just to clarify, I think the question really is trying to, get your thoughts on whether Philip Shaibu's actions supporting the APC candidate, do you see that as, would you term that as anti-party activity for a PDP member?
If you ask me, I think it is what it is, right? You have
not what it is. Is it? Would you say that it is an anti-party? If your candidate in the APC, or Matthew Pobolu, suddenly, or maybe his vice, deputy governorship candidate, suddenly starts to support the Labour Party candidate or of some sort, or the PDP candidate, would you term that an anti-party activity?
Exactly, that is what it is. I can't say that it's not. It is anti-party, but who now determines whether it is anti-party is the disciplinary committee defined under Article 57. Because people do certain things for certain reasons. And I'm saying that most political parties, there's what we call the conventional aspect of the activities of a political party. And I give you an example in Ondo State. Last year, Governor Obaseki, the executive governor of Ondo State, supported Labour Party, supported the presidential candidate. He sponsored 24 members, or rather 24 candidates of the Ondo State House of Assembly under the Labour Party platform. I was one of those he offered that ticket. Is that not anti-party? But as a governor, be disciplined. And that is why my party, the APC, have said, instead of disciplining Danobi for accepting an appointment in the APC government, discipline Obaseki. One of our party leaders, Charles Idausa, who joined Obaseki June 19, 2020 to join the PDP from the APC, had an appointment in the APC government. He was a member of the board of the Railroad Corporation. Obaseki did not have any issue with this. So I think the PDP as a party is sinking. I mean, if you suspend the leader of your party, that's the South-South vice chairman, you suspend a person who gave Obaseki his ticket in 2020, because already was already the person that was seen as a presumptive candidate of PDP when Obaseki was thrown out, yanked off from the APC. That Philip Shaibu, who has stood by him, they forced him out of office as deputy governor. Not done yet. They now want him out of the party. I mean, for us in the APC, it is a time for us to celebrate because the emperor in PDP, Obaseki, has destroyed his house. And his own candidate that he's supporting is crying that the party is highly factionalized, that they have 5 factions.
Yeah,
can you go into an election like that? That was why they lost last year's election woefully. In the House of Reps election that took place on the 25th of February last year, PDP did not win 1 seat. The one they did subsequently, which was a supplementary election, was rigged. The House of Assembly election was rigged. So for us in the APC, it is celebration time. It shows that Obaseki is not a good manager. He left APC because of crisis. He created problem there. He came into PDP. He has created the same crisis. Sadly, in our state, there's no development.
Yeah.
And that is why the APC, we are offering an alternative to the huge development gap Obaseki has created. My candidate has a 5-point agenda to reset Edo for prosperity. And when you look at the 5-point agenda, the first there is security of lives and property. In Edo State,
hold on, before we get into that aspect, I'm going to allow you to speak about your candidate, but before we get there, just one clarity on what you're saying. Are you agreeing that some of these moves may be anti-party activities, including accepting appointment from the opposition party? Your challenge really is just that they didn't go through Article 57 of the PDP Constitution before suspending these members. Is that the challenge that you have? Or are you arguing, that this may not even be anti-party activities?
My own question is, when the head of the fish is rotting, it affects the body. Isn't that so? In the PDP as it stands, every governor of a PDP state is the leader of the party. A situation where the head of the house or the head of the fish is involved in anti-party activity and nothing is said, it becomes a law.
That is left for the PDP.
Becomes abnormal.
Yeah, but that is left for the PDP to decide. You know, what I'm asking is...
And that's the issue some of us have, that a person who is deputy governor, you know, you accuse him of what the governor has, you know, done. I mean, that's double standards. Nobody will take such a party very seriously. And though people I know would reject...
All right, hold on, Honorable Wata.
Party that has dwelt more on crisis than governance.
Honorable Wata, in 30 seconds, all right, because you already started talking about your candidate, you know, and his 5-point agenda. He has been senator for Edo Central for a bit. Can you name 3 things that Honorable Monday Okpebholo has brought for Edo Central since he has been senator for Edo Central in the time that he's been there? 3 things: bills that he has pushed or passed or, you know, started, ways that he has developed Edo Central as a senator representing that area.
Yeah, thank you. The moment he became senator, he hit the ground running by, first of all, on the floor of the Nigerian Senate, moving a motion for the federal government to intervene in the deplorable state of the Benin-Auchi route because the Ekpoma axis is completely impassable. And he followed up with that by meeting Mr. President. And Mr. President, in response to that motion and the request of the senator representing Edo Central, has ensured that enough resources, 120 billion, was approved. And of course, the tax credit scheme was activated. And as I speak to you, work has started on the Benin-Auchi route, particularly the Ekpoma up to Irua axis. Serious work is being done there. And even beyond that, as a senator, he ensures that members of his constituency are empowered. Before he became a senator, he had always had a scholarship scheme. He has provided over 20 security vehicles to deal with the security challenge in Edo Central. When you compare that with the intervention of Aso Ighodalo of the PDP, he just gave them a parting sum of the 100,000 and rejected the request for him to be part of the Board of Trustees of the security network.
All right. Mr. Wata, unfortunately, we have to go now. There are too many things that we need to still talk about. Interestingly, I'd like to find out what the future of Philip Shaibu's career is going forward, and, you know, ahead of the gifts given to the APC. And I wonder, you know, if that would influence maybe some form of collaboration in the nearest future, you know, what that would look like. But today is not the day for that conversation. We'll have you join us again. Thank you so much. And we, of course, we look forward to speaking with you again. All right, we're going to break now. When we come back, we have more conversations. Stay with us.
Welcome once again. The Lagos State Ministry of Health has recorded 401 suspected cases of cholera in 29 wards across multiple local governments. There are at least 21 persons confirmed dead in Lagos State.
In its recent reports, the Nigeria Center for Disease Control and Prevention said that from the 1st of January to 11th of June 2024, there have been over 1,141 suspected and over 65 confirmed cases of cholera, resulting in over 30 deaths from 96 local government areas in 30 states in the country. In Nigeria, cholera is an endemic and seasonal disease, occurring annually, mostly during the rainy season, and more frequently in areas with poor sanitation. This morning, we're joined by the Senior Special Assistant to the Governor of Lagos State on Health, Dr. Oluwarotimi Akeredolu. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
All right, cholera has become a mainstream conversation in the past few days or week. Is this something to be should we be very worried?
Well, I would not say we should be very worried, but it's just that precautionary measures have to be taken. We have to take our sanitation measures very important now. So all the preventive measures we have come up with as a state, as the Ministry of Health, all these have been circulated widely, and there are things that people should, your hygiene measures now should be heightened. You should take your hand hygiene very seriously, food hygiene, environmental hygiene. So it's just a time to improve on our sanitation practices generally.
What is the current rate of infection? You know, how bad is it currently across Lagos? And are there certain areas that are of concern?
Oh, yeah. So from the time the outbreak was detected, we've had over 400 cases now in Lagos, spread across various local government areas. No suspected cases. So out of this, about 35 of them are confirmed cases. And what we mean by confirmed cases means there have been laboratory testing, and we have been able to isolate Vibrio cholera, which is the bacteria responsible for cholera, in the stool specimen. So they're like 35. So it's like less than 10% of our suspected cases have actually found to be confirmed. When we drew our epidemic curve, it was found out that most of these cases actually occurred in Lagos Island local government, and then we had some in Koshofe local government area as well. That's where we have had the highest number of cases so far. But as of today, it's actually spread across various local governments in Lagos State.
All right. So what would you say are the things that people should look out for? At what point should people start getting concerned if a person is feeling symptoms? Because we know that the most commonly abused sickness in Nigeria, I think, it's malaria. Any small thing, I have headache or I have malaria. So what are the symptoms people should look out for and know that, okay, I should be concerned, and at what point should they go to the hospital?
Okay, so usually when there's an outbreak, we usually come up with case definitions. And so currently, the case definition for cholera can be divided into two. We have the suspected case and then a confirmed case. So the suspected case is anybody above the age of 5 years of age who presents with signs of dehydration, of severe dehydration, following acute watery diarrhea. But because we have an outbreak right now, we are capturing everybody that has diarrhea right now, with or without vomiting. Although the classical symptoms of cholera are profuse diarrhea. We usually call it the rice water stool, because when it comes out, it's uncontrollable and it looks cloudy like rice water. But we're not waiting for you to have such a classic presentation of cholera. Instead, because we're doing an active case search, anybody at all that has diarrhea above 5 years, because lower than 5 years of age, diarrhea is common in children at that age from various causes. So we'll include them, but specifically anybody above the age of 5 right now, especially in our hot areas like Lagos Island, Koshofe, that comes up with severe dehydration from diarrheal causes. And some of the signs and symptoms of severe dehydration, the person is extremely weak. You have uncontrollable diarrhea, like the rice water stool I explained. And then it also affects the heart rate. It affects the blood pressure. Blood pressure reduces. Heart rate goes up. Your skin is very dry. Mouth is very dry. So the person is acutely ill.
Always thirsty, maybe.
Excessive
thirst. I just want to also quickly clarify the severe diarrhea bit, because typically when you hear diarrhea, you're already thinking watery stool. But someone may have watery stool once. Does that qualify as diarrhea? You know, how regularly should they have experienced it before they run to the hospital or before they classify it as suspected case of cholera?
Okay, so diarrhea basically is the passage of loose watery stool, and we use the frequency to determine that. So usually the frequency, once it's more than 3 times in a day and it's loose watery stool, that can be classified as diarrhea. Of course, some people eat something sometimes that makes them purge, but then when you're not having loose frequent stool up to like more than 3 times a day, and then you're already having signs of dehydration, tiredness, weakness, you're already having your lips are getting dry, you're getting thirsty, even your skin is losing its elasticity. There's loss of skin toggle, that's what we call it. So those are signs that dehydration has set in. But then, and one thing that people should know, viewers should know, is that you should have this period, you should have the ORS solution, that's the oral rehydration sachet at home. That's the first aid measure. So whether or not it's suspected cholera, it's regular diarrhea, your own part is to start rehydrating immediately after, because cholera is very acute. A lot of people that come up with cholera, they just have a short window period where they lose all their electrolytes, and it eventually becomes fatal if they don't get to the health center on time. But that ORS is a life-saving home remedy that you can quickly start using before you present at the healthcare facility.
You mentioned 401 suspected cases,
yes.
35 confirmed. When you say, what do you mean by a suspected case?
Okay, so suspected cases are those that fit the case definition, which I defined earlier on. So we're doing an active case search. We have disease surveillance notification officers in all the local government areas. So what they do is they go around, and we also have community informants. They let them know this case definition, that is there anybody that has diarrhea here? And we're also informing the public, if you have diarrhea, present so that it can be counted as a suspected case and one which should be tested. So all the ones that they have been able to isolate, especially in the health facilities, those are the ones that have signs of probably dehydration. They are the ones that are being line listed and counted as suspected cases of cholera because there's an outbreak, and we are looking out for those that have severe diarrhea.
Now, what I'm trying to clarify, if you have 35 confirmed cases, 401 suspected, does it mean that all 401 have been tested and only 35 showed?
Okay, so we have
positive?
401. Well, it's even more than, slightly more than that now, but on average, 401 suspected cases. Out of those 401 suspected cases, about 129 of them have actually been tested, were tested, or had the privilege of being tested. Some of them, so for cholera, sometimes it could be asymptomatic. For some people, they might be infected, have diarrhea one day, they go back home. But they were a suspected case, but they've gone back home. So cases that made it to the lab that were tested are like 129. And out of this 129, 35 of them were actually confirmed to have vibrio cholera. It was isolated, so they have cholera.
Is it possible that from the remaining numbers of that 401, there's others that are positive?
It's unlikely because all the ones that
Because you say you've tested only 129.
Yes, so all the ones that came to the health facilities that had, before they were discharged, because another thing that is going on is that a lot of people, due to health-seeking behavior, sometimes they present at the pharmacies and they use antibiotics. Any small thing, they use antibiotics, which is an abuse of medication. So by the time you use these antibiotics, it masks the picture. So we're not able to get a true picture of what is going on. So the ones that we were able to catch before medications have started, because they will give us a true reflection of the results we're expecting, are the ones that were sent to the lab. And now out of them, it's the 129, and then 35 have been confirmed. So the others, either there was no indication for testing anymore, or the symptoms resolved on their own and they were actually discharged to go home.
All right, let's talk about how cholera spreads, because people might hear that someone maybe has tested positive for cholera and now starts avoiding them. Is that a time to avoid people? How quickly does it spread?
Okay, so cholera is transmitted through the fecal-oral routes. And what that basically means is that there has to be a connection somehow between feces and then getting ingested. But obviously, we know that people don't ingest feces. So there are mediums through which that feces can actually get into the human body. We usually use the fecal pathway to describe that, and it includes 4 or 5 Fs. So from the fecal matter, which is the feces now, it can either go through food that we have talked about, food being contaminated. Food is the contamination where it gets contaminated. But for it to get to food, from the fingers, like if you don't wash your hands properly, I use the toilet, I don't wash my hands, I eat, that's my fingers. The other one is fluid. Water bodies can get contaminated by fecal matter. That's why we are discouraging open defecation or having sewage water, wastewater close to the primary source of drinking water. And then, so these are ways in which from fecal, it can get to food, and from food, you ingest the food and it gets to human. So that's the mode of transmission.
What, from human to human?
No, it's not infectious. However, in hospital settings, the loose stool from the patient with cholera, so caregivers or healthcare providers treating a cholera patient can have contact with their body fluid, the loose stool, and that can also be a source of infection to them. So we have infection prevention control measures at our hospitals, health centers, to remind healthcare providers to always ensure they use their gloves, use everything they need to do to protect themselves and ensure that they also don't get infected from a patient. All
right. Is there a way to tell what exactly is the cause of a cholera outbreak? Like in every... Like from what we're seeing in Lagos now, can you tell whether it is, it caused by open defecation or it is caused by failure to wash, hands in a restaurant? Is there a way that we can tell where the very first case in Lagos started from?
Yes, so we've actually been able to cone it down a bit. Usually, cholera is not really something we should be having anymore in this day and age. So anytime we have such an infection like cholera, it just shows a breakdown in our wash system. That's our water, sanitation, and hygiene. So it's mainly an environmental problem. So it's either that our water has been contaminated, our wastewater is not being channeled properly to the right way it should be channeled. So we've been able to find out, so immediately this happened, a public health emergency operating center was constituted, and it comprised of people from the Ministry of Environment, Lagos State Environmental Protection Agency, even our Environmental Health Directorate at the Ministry of Health. So they went out to the field, especially Lagos Island, where we had almost 100 cases in 2 days. They started testing their water bodies to try to find out if they were contaminated. And we started getting the results, and it has shown that we have some contaminated water sources in Lagos Island, and immediately they've cordoned off such water supply source. They've given them alternatives, and they've also treated with chlorine. So that's ongoing, and I'm sure that as a fallout of this outbreak, we're going to be doing, they've been doing it before, but it's going to be more intense to continue testing our water bodies to make sure that there's no contamination.
Is it possible to be specific where in Lagos Island?
Okay, unfortunately, I won't be able to give that information. However, once they finish compiling the results, the press release will be made out to the public. But be rest assured that instant measures have been taken. They've cordoned off the area. They've contaminated, they've disinfected that water body. They've given the people their alternative water supply, because it just takes a few days for you to, for example, if it's a well that has been found to be contaminated and you do your chlorination there, in a short while, the water is safe for everybody to use.
Yeah, but can you tell, apologies, but can you tell, because you're talking about water bodies now, can you tell if this is born out of open defecation or some other?
Oh, sure. Most likely it's open defecation, because remember I said it's fecal-oral, so there has to be fecal matter that has combined or mixed with water.
And does that concern you?
Yes, definitely. So that's why we have our developmental partners on board. We have UNICEF, who is actually big on WASH. They've come up with WASH strategies. We have all the relevant agencies and ministries in Lagos State that should be channeling wastewater properly. So they are doing their assessments, they are doing risk assessments, they are carrying out so many things that are going on at this point in time. It's actually really, we celebrate, we have days where we look at toilets, all those things. So yes, all those environmental matters. So yes, we are not quite there yet as a nation, and because we're almost reaching 30 million in Lagos, so Lagos is overpopulated. We have slum areas, so things like this would keep happening. However, we have to take all our environmental measures more seriously and then come up with drastic measures to ensure that we have clean water supply, and then we have channels where our wastewater is being evacuated
from. What actually gives me concern is, cholera is often referred to as, like we mentioned earlier, it's a disease of poverty. It's a disease that reflects how poor a nation or a people are. People don't have access to clean water. They don't have access to toilets. Like, it's a shame that we still have conversations about open defecation in 2024, and that shows that there aren't toilets. So in this current climate where life has been very, very hard, people are talking about the cost of inflation, yet we're talking, on the other hand, discouraging people from eating out, telling them to be properly hygienic. There are people who do not have the luxury of not eating out, of not eating by the roadside. Should we be worried? And what would you say the government is doing to be able to help people like that, who are not doing this because they want to, but they don't have any other alternatives? They don't have toilets, they don't have access to potable water, they don't even have access to food. So whatever food they can get, they'd have to make do with that.
Okay, so our health education is actually, and health awareness is delving really deep down to communities, to this kind of people that you're actually describing. So the prevention of cholera basically does not necessarily have to do with how much I have. There are basic hygiene measures. For example, if I have no choice and I have to buy food outside, if I'm buying fruits and all I have to do is ensure that I wash my fruits properly. So a lot of people are fond of maybe, I go to the market, I see carrots, I buy carrots, and immediately it's going into my mouth.
But the water that they
apple.
use to wash it, even some of us who live on the island, we still have to buy water in bags to be able to ensure that we have access to clean water. So some don't even have that water, and they can't even have access to buy the water because they don't even have money.
Exactly. I totally understand you, which is why another strategy or preventive measure, which you can use to safeguard yourself, is ensure that whatever water you're using, you boil it, because boiling has been found to kill the bacteria, viable cholera. So boiling for just 1 minute, so you don't even have to complain about, oh, my gas or this. Once you boil your water, you have already purified it to a reasonable extent. Then we also have these chlorine tablets that are widely available. I think they go for 20 naira a tablet, and one tablet can purify almost 25 liters of water. There was a time it was very popular. There was a common one that was water guard. That's what it's called. So in areas where I know that I'm suspecting my water, because we can't wait for La Sepa to test all the water bodies before you know if your water is contaminated or not. But people can tell sometimes by the taste of water. So merely using your chlorine tablet can purify your water for a whole household. So there are some simple measures. There's nothing highfalutin about trying to ensure that you protect yourself from some of those waterborne illnesses.
All right.
All right, it's a lot of conversations we're having this morning, but we thank you very much, Dr. Oluwarotimi Adeyemi, for being here with us, and we look forward to the day when conversations about cholera in Lagos, in Nigeria, become a thing of the past.
Looking forward to that as well.
Thank you for joining us this morning on Breakfast Central. Let's look through the papers with you. The numbers to call are on your TV screen. Calling, turn down the volume of your TV set before you call in. Well, we're delving into this with the head of strategy and public affairs, Nairametrics, Wade Ahimie. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Great to be here.
Great to have you as well. Let's start with this Nigerian newspaper. On the front page of this Nigerian newspaper, the top story there says, strike looms in universities as SSANU, NASU give federal government 2 weeks ultimatum. It's like they've been quiet for a while and we had a break, you know. NLC has taken a break for a while, so it's time for us to hear about strike. So, long time no strike. They say address lingering issues of phase first strike, ASU wants government. Cholera suspected cases rise to 401 in Lagos. Death toll hits 21. And at the top of the paper, public debt rises by 24.33 trillion naira in 3 months, says DM1. That's all that we have on this Nigerian newspaper. Let's move over to the next.
The Punch newspapers comes up next. Cholera, death toll rises to 37 as Lagos records 401 cases. Federal government orders water analysis as outbreak spreads in Lagos. Osho, Cross River, activate emergency response. 5 people hospitalized. And also, Lagos APC mourns member as Hajj deaths cross 1,000. I think a few Nigerians have also been reported to have died in the Hajj. Really sad story there. Protesters demand El Rufai's trial for alleged 423 billion naira theft. Also on the Punch, federal government probes 2.7 trillion naira subsidy debt and lists Auditor General. Naira slump. Loans push public debt to 121 trillion naira, says the DMO. And also, we can find the top of the screen there. I think we can move away from that one. Emirate Tosu, Kano plans appeal as court sacks Sanusi. That's on page 2 of the Punch newspapers this morning. Now to the Daily Trust newspapers. On the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper, Kano Emirate is the big story. Court leaves contenders in limbo. Exactly, we are all in limbo. We don't understand. Says Governor Yusuf's actions of May 23 null and void. Ruling affirmed Bayero's deposition. AG asks police to evict 15th Emir. Judge's decision strange and confusing, says Professor Yadudu. Professor, you're not alone. Barricades on Rivers local government secretaries will remain, according to the IGP. Irate youth kill man accused of blasphemy in Bauchi. Nah. Super Eagles drop 8 places in latest FIFA ranking. Cyclist jailed for slapping seizing gun from policeman in Jos. And at the top of the paper, this is not good. Journalist found dead in Abuja. Governor turns varsities into constituency projects. ASU. Army acquires own surveillance helicopters. That's all on the front page of the Daily Trust. Let's begin with the Kano Emirate story. Do you by any chance understand what is going on?
I truly really don't understand. I think when it comes to cases, and let my legal friends correct me, when it comes to cases relating to traditional rule and all, I think it's a high court issue.
Yeah, it's on the state.
It is.
We've had the high court.
State High Court.
State High Court give a judgment in favor of the current administration.
Yes.
We've had the federal high court give two judgments. The same judge who said they should hold stay. And the question for me is, what is the Judicial Commission doing? You're just sitting there. If it's a state matter, then let it be a state matter. If it needs to go anywhere else, it should move from the high court in the state and move to an appeal court.
Yeah, but
and then go to
doesn't just point.
I don't see this.
To
that's
the
why I said
of the judiciary.
That's my point. That's the point I'm trying to make. What is the federal high court interfering in a judicial issue that has to do with the state? Why don't you just do the right thing? And it has become so rampant all through this democratic
multiplicity of judgments from different courts.
You would get an issue in Rivers State. A judge, a federal high court in Kano will give a judgment on a matter that has to do with state issues. When you're a federal high court, when the state high court has given
its own ruling,
and it just beats me. Are they not on the same level anymore? Or the federal high court is now higher than the state high court? And then what cases go to the federal high court and what cases go to... I'm not a lawyer, so let my legal friends help me out. But I just think that this is a state issue. The state high court has given its judgment. If the last emirate feels, or the state assembly feels that they have a case, then they should go and appeal it in the appeal court and let it go to the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court can actually tell us clearly who has jurisdiction and what the law says.
Aren't judges also aren't they supposed to be able to say that they don't have the jurisdiction to, to speak on a certain matter and send it back? Shouldn't that happen?
So that's why we're asking ourselves this question.
So at the end of the day, I would think that, I think that even the parties themselves is why they would always, in a number of times, the preliminary objection is always on jurisdiction. Yeah. Does this court have jurisdiction to hear this matter? It's always like what we see. But to be honest, I'm as confused, if not more confused, than the both of you. I don't know what's going on. I'm not quite sure I understand the implication of the interpretation of this last judgment. I'm not quite sure.
So that's you even going further to try and understand the implication. I'm just saying that who has jurisdiction? Let's start from there. Let's not continue to kick the can down the road.
And now we're talking about jurisdiction. It's probably a good time to go to River State because there's also an issue with jurisdiction there with regards Martins Amaule and his extension of the local government chairman's tenure for 6 months. So let's talk about that. It's in the news on the Punch also. Daily Trust, sorry. Barricades on Rivers local government secretariats will remain, says the Inspector General of Police. The chaos continues. It has not ended. It's moving from one level to the other. The Inspector General of Police has gotten involved now. There's the claims that there is so much chaos in Rivers State, they need to call for a state of emergency. The APC government or the Tinubu government needs to call for a state of emergency. That's what APC is calling for in Rivers State. We spoke with someone earlier this week, and he said that that's what, I think even Governor Fubara said it in his state address, that is what he's expecting to happen, that people will start calling for a state of emergency. So share with us, your thoughts on what has happened so far.
You see, I really, when Nigerians continue to blame the judicial system, it's not today, and it's not over just the last election.
Yes.
It's over the way we see them pass judgments and pass judgments, and then the judges themselves. It just beats me. Are they really, what do you call them, men of high esteem? And I continue to ask that question. Why? The Supreme Court judgment on moving from one party to the other is clear. So if members of the State Assembly have defected,
yes,
are you with me? Then they no longer own that seat. So are they valid members of the State Assembly? That's one part on its own. We've had different judgments on that. Now, there is a law in Rivers State on local governments and who can extend their tenure.
Yes.
But there is a constitutional law, that what the Constitution says about local government and when the tenure of the local government chairmen end. So which one holds sway? Is it the state law or the Constitution? And a number of people have heard, some people, those who are defending it are saying, no, that the State Assembly has the right to extend it based on the state law. More people are telling me that according to the Constitution, it ends on the last day, and then the governor has the right to move on and say, okay, move out of office while we prepare to do an election. And it happened in this same River State. So I'm amazed that a year before the ex-governor leaves, you pass a state law saying that it's the State Assembly that has the right.
So it almost feels like this was premeditated,
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, and there are so many legal issues. I'm not a lawyer.
Yeah.
And I always like to appeal to my legal friends. And I have plenty of them. As they're listening, please tell me, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Does the state law is it above what the Constitution says?
Obviously not.
Normally, the Constitution is the ground norm. The
That
basic is
that we know.
every other law is subject to the
That
Constitution.
we know.
All right.
So
But there are these theories, maybe if you can throw in, your thoughts on this one. There are these theories that, some of these things that you see aren't necessarily because of what, we are being told is the reason behind the crisis. For example, in Kano State, there's one of our guests who mentioned that he believes that the reason behind the Kano tussle is because there's certain, persons that are trying to gain control of Kano State. And so they need to, of course, plug in both from the traditional angle to the government, to the House of Assembly, and that's the reason why Sanusi is being brought back, because he, of course, is going to favor one side. And of course, APC lost Kano State, so that's the reason. And pretty much the same thing in River State, that the reason behind the shuffling or the decisions concerning local government is because, it gives certain level of, or certain leverage to one faction or the other. And so it's not necessarily the way that we're being told, that, is the reason behind these crises.
So let me start by saying, the voice of Jacob, the hand of his sword, that's what they're saying. I'm not God, neither am I a prophet, I'm not a marabout, so I don't see visions and I don't see things from behind. I see what is there, what has been stated, what is reported, I speak about them, and that's how I look at it. What I look at is these are all legal issues that need to be dealt with. If the judiciary or judges are throwing judgments left, right, and center, I think the National Judicial Commission should come in and check this quickly. We heard a couple of weeks ago the chief judge make some proclamations on all these judgments flying left, right, and center, even in Kano, where he spoke to the chief judge of Kano. So these are the things that we should look at. I don't know which hand of Esau, are you with me? And the voice of Jacob. And I'm not a conspiracy.
All right.
And I don't like conspiracy theory.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I want us to still take the big story on this Nigerian newspaper. Strike looms in universities as SSNU now to give federal government 2 weeks ultimatum. But we'll come back to that. Let's take this phone call. Hello, Elder David. Good morning. Thank you for calling us.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. What I'm trying to say is that the Nigerians try to respect law. There's no problem we are having. Everybody is just giving his own opinion. Why can't people wait for the final judgment of the court? That's what happened in Rivers. If more people can sit down in controlling 25 people, I don't understand. If people can be mobilized to be disturbing others, in fact, it is not a good thing. Nobody is happy. And they got to be very careful because we know what happened in Ondo State between Ladoja and Baba Adedibo. And whatever somebody is doing, when you are praying for divine favor comes to somebody by God.
I think I'm struggling to hear.
You and you betray him, then the devil will talk to you.
All right. Elder David,
there's nothing to talk about that.
all right. Thank you so much for calling, Elder David. I was struggling with his audio. I don't know if anybody else here heard him clearly.
I didn't really hear him so clearly, but I think he was referring to people just giving their own opinion. And I think one of the best ways to go about this, especially for the Kano issue, I think the Attorney General of Kano State should just take this matter first and foremost and just apply directly to the Supreme Court to first interpret who has jurisdiction. That way, it might get some form of clarity. The question might be, how long will it take? If it's a matter of urgency, I'm sure the Supreme Court will. They now have more than enough judges. So they should be able to sit quickly. 5 judges should be able to sit quickly and tell us who has jurisdiction.
Okay. Let's talk about the seeming impending strike by SSANU, NASU, and they've given federal government 2 weeks ultimatum. So it feels like when we get off the back of one strike, there's almost it's like, can we ever catch a break? But please, once again, let's try to take another call from Garba. Hello, Garba. Good morning. Thanks for calling. Please go ahead with your conversation. Sorry to comment.
Thank you very much. Good morning, sister. Good morning, brother.
Morning, Garba. Go ahead,
sir.
My point is just to input over that Kano. The Federal High Court has no jurisdiction to intervene any area or any chieftaincy. I am a lawyer, Professor. The Federal High Court has no jurisdiction with a state chieftaincy It is the state high court have the law to rule and pass the judgment. If you are not satisfied, you go to court of appeal. So I'm surprised why Justice Iman, a judge who have appointed for court of appeal, stay back, let us pass judgment before going. Why? The judiciary is a common, where a common man has a lay, but it appears the judiciary has been used by individuals, by Nigerians, by politicians. It's embarrassing.
All right.
So as it stands, the judge, the federal high court judge is aside to notice still remain the suspecting area because the state high court has passed the judgment. So if you don't need that judgment, you go to court of appeal.
All right, thank you very much, Garba. So I think he's sort of within the same thing, you know, saying it's a jurisdiction conversation. Why is the Federal High Court sitting on a matter that is within the purview of the State High Court? But there's another angle that we haven't talked about, which is the demolition that is being carried out. So the order has been given for the Commissioner of Police to pull down the mini palace where Adebayo is staying, and that's also another cause for concern because this palace that you're pulling down for the sake of quote-unquote renovation, which money are you going to use to renovate it?
That's the issue of the of the Kano State government. It's a Kano State government. Yeah. They made that decision. Are they going to tear it down? They can tear it down and tell you that.
Because I saw a video. I don't know if you also saw the video.
And they don't necessarily need to renovate it. You know, the government has a right to tell you what they say. This is what they want to do. So let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Which money? Okay. That's is on the purview of the Kano State government.
So that means in that way we can also excuse what happened in Rivers State as well. When what's his name? Simina Life Barra pulled down House of Assembly complex, saying that he had been given advice that after the fire, the quality of the building was in contest, even though many people will tell you that it was more of a political reason.
That's what people say. But did anybody actually go look for the report that the governor of Rivers State said that he had? Because if that was what was sent to him and there was a report that was signed and that was the basis of what he did, I won't see it as political.
We have to go, before Monday, I want to make sure that we actually go and check if they have started the renovation in that House of Assembly complex.
It might take a while.
Because with the urgency with which they pulled down that building, I would imagine that they've started renovating.
No, let's be very careful about buildings and when they are no longer in good condition. The first thing, and if you ask anybody who is in building an environment, you take it down as quickly as possible, because you don't want it to become something that
collapse by itself.
Collapse.
Public,
and then becomes a matter of public issue and public safety. Yeah, so that's the first thing. You take it down as quickly as possible. Now, it's easier to take down a building, costs less to take down a building than to put up a new structure. Now, if you take it down immediately, then the other things will be, do you have a structure that you want to put there immediately? If you don't, then there will be bids for designs, the architectural designs, before you now go
even though they would say that when the property was being taken down, it was taken down with such hurry that even a number of the things that were inside were not brought down.
Public safety is number one when it comes to bringing down a property.
I hear you.
It's not politics. It's public safety.
I hear you very well. Let's go to the
strike conversation. It didn't take time when they were building the vice president's residence.
Renovation. And it was public safety also.
I see that. I see where you're coming from. Let's talk about the strike. Strike looming in universities. What do you make of this? It seems like we may never be able to get out of the constant strikes, by ASU and SANU and all these other academic bodies. Why can't we find a position? Why can't they reach a middle ground with the government?
My opinion, and I always say this, and before I give my opinion, I'm a beneficiary of the educational system in Nigeria. A huge beneficiary. I went to school for practically free. When I say practically free, it was very cheap. I know people who went to school for free in this country. That's primary, secondary, university. Yeah. But the fact of the matter is that tertiary education is not cheap, that's one, and it's not for everybody. Yeah. It's not for everybody. Basic education, primary, secondary school, to be able to read and write. And when you look at the Constitution, up till now, it hasn't changed. What are the basic requirements for you to run for a political office? Your high school certificate. So, for me, in my own opinion, I don't see why government continues to set up new universities when you can't even fund the ones that you have. There has been call for university autonomy. It might lead to cost of fees going higher. But many people in Nigeria today don't send their children to state universities, to federal universities. Even some of the state universities are so expensive, they're as expensive as private universities. And your children still go there because you believe that it's the quality of education. Oh, don't get me wrong, federal universities are still top-notch. But the fact remains that we can't continue to talk about you're not paying salaries, you're on this salary level, you're this, you're that. What happened to research funding that comes into universities? Some of these professors in these universities all go out, they pay them for coming to work in different places, for doing sabbaticals, for doing visiting professors. They make so much money from them. What happened to Nigerian universities? Why have we not moved from there? Why have we just continually gone down every day, every year, and continue to ask government every year who increases salaries and don't increase
What
it?
do you think,
So I think
should be blamed? Would
I
you
think
say that it's mostly the lack of investment in education infrastructure?
For me, the lack of investment in educational infrastructure is in basic education, primary and secondary schools. I don't know. When I think about it, how many universities really across the world belong to the government of the country? Top-notch universities that we all strive to go. Tell me.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So the universities themselves must create a system that will make them self-dependent, are you with me? Self-funding, and that's the system that they must think about. We continue to strike. Unfortunately, our children of Nigeria will not get good education, and that's unfortunate. But the reality of it, and like I said, I'm a beneficiary. I have no other qualifications aside from qualifications had in Nigeria. But the reality of it is education, tertiary education is not cheap. And if we're going to continue in that direction, then professors and universities should run autonomously and so that government can have money to put in basic education.
Well, it's a point. You do have a point there. I don't know if they will, X-ray those, and maybe also look.
What happens if primary school and secondary school teachers
also went on strike?
We're in problem.
That's a good place to leave
We're
it.
in problem.
So that's why I'm asking that question.
Yeah.
Nobody ever says that. The Nigerian Union of Teachers.
Well, maybe because a lot of them are more private. We have a lot more private ones.
Are you sure that we have more private schools than we have public schools?
Well, I don't have the facts to back that up, so I can't
be
say
careful.
that. But I do know that a lot more people lean towards
Because you stay in Lagos, and you tend to believe that a lot more people. On the average, in Sulere, government college, where it is, there are like 5 schools there. You should go there when they close at 2 p.m. or 3 p.m. and see the number of children that walk out of there. They can't be less than 2,000, 3,000, even not up to 10,000.
I can imagine that.
On a daily basis. How many private schools have that?
All right. Thank you so much, Owade, for joining us.
Thank you for having me, as usual.
We hope that we would have a positive update, especially in this ASU case, that it doesn't end up getting into a strike. You schooled in Nigeria, so you know the challenges that will come with going on a strike. I experienced it, and it wasn't a good thing.
When I was schooling in Nigeria, going on strike wasn't because of the lecturers. It was because the students felt that the government was not doing something right or wrong.
Okay, so you were in support of students. Oh, interesting.
There was a more active SUG back then.
Yeah, there was a more active student union government. Today, there is no students union.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Do have a wonderful rest of the week, and see you again. We'll go on a break now, and we'll come back. We'll be looking into some more top stories. Stay with us. Welcome back. A federal high court in Kano on Thursday nullified the Kano Emirate Council Amendment Number 2 Law 2024 that scrapped 4 of the 5 Emirate councils of the state last month and removed all the 5 emirs, including Aminu Ado Bayero of Kano. Justice Abdullahi Liman ordered the restoration of the Kano Emirate Council Law 2019 that split Kano into 5 emirates of Kano, Bichi, Karaye, Rano, and Gaya.
The judge, however, transferred the case to another federal high court judge, Simon Amobeda, for continuation. given his elevation to the Court of Appeal. Joining us is the managing partner, Crescent Cradle Attorneys, Samson Ojodomo Onuche. Good morning and thanks for joining us.
And thank you for having me on the program.
Great to have you. We're confused this morning, and I'm sure that a lot of Nigerians are confused. I'm sure that even, both emirs are confused as well, because nobody knows what exactly the court ruling says. The Kano State government, of course, has interpreted it their way. They have moved ahead to allegedly give orders for the demolition of one of the palaces. Please help Nigerians understand what the ruling is as of this morning.
So, thank you. The issue about the Kano State ruling is an issue that has been subjected to several interpretations by even lawyers and also the society and also the government too. But the interpretation of the situation is simple when you look at or when you actually look at the judgment that the court or the ruling that the court gave on that particular matter. Now, the court gave an order that the status quo should be maintained. And at this stage, it's quite normal that we know what was the status quo that should be maintained that the court gave an order for it to be maintained. Now, the Emirate Council law was passed by the Kano State House of Assembly, and it was assented by the governor. Now, the court made an order that the status quo should be maintained on the 23rd of May, that the status quo should be maintained. As at when the court made an order that the status quo should be maintained, the Kano State Emirate Council law had already been passed and it has already been assented to by the governor. However, there has been no execution of this law as at that stage. So when the court gave an order that the status quo should be maintained, the court stated categorically that the court did not abrogate the Kano State Emirates Council Repeal Law of 2019. The court did not abrogate it. The court actually spoke on the validity of the State House of Assembly to make the law, and also for the government to also assent to that law. But what the court was saying was that this particular law should not be given execution until the case before the court is determined. Now, what is the execution that the court was talking about? The execution was going ahead, one, to remove the Emir Ado Bayero, that's one, and number two, the appointment of the Emir Sanusi. Now, after this court order was given, the state government still went ahead to appoint the Emir Sanusi and also remove the former emir that was there. So, and this is in violation of the order that the court initially gave. So, but what the state government was relying on was that why the order was made on the 23rd, that they were not served that order till on the 27th, and they had already taken action in executing the law as at on the 24th. But the court actually reasoned that the governor acknowledged that he sought that order on social media, one, and there was also a video recording that acknowledged that the governor acknowledged that there was an order to that effect. And the order was also served also on the Attorney General of the state, making the court to form an opinion that despite the fact that the state governor was not served that order till on the 27th, that the state government was aware of the situation of the court and the order that the court has made for parties to maintain status quo. So what the status quo means is that, one, that there should not be an execution of that law. The court did not abrogate that law, and the court did not go back to say that the four emirate councils should be established. What the court says that this law has been passed and it has been assented, but there should not be execution, because there is a matter that is pending before the court.
So is what you're saying that so far, what the interpretation of that might mean is that we have, Kano State has the emirs, the both of them still active, because whilst it's, the law cannot go back in time to take effect, but it recognizes the law, but it also, the status quo would then mean that Ado Bayero is still the emir. Is that what you're saying?
With the status quo that the court gave an order to maintain, Ado Bayero still stands to be the emir, because the law is still there, one. But this order of the court was that there should not be an execution. So as at the time that the court gave that order, the status quo was that the law is still in place and the law is validly enacted, but that there shouldn't be an execution pending the hearing and determination of the matter that was before the court.
All right, so just once again clarify, the confusion with regards to the jurisdiction of the Federal High Court, to involve itself in these issues.
Now, if you go by that one, number one, the Federal High Court has a specific jurisdiction that has been stated under Section 251 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Now, among those powers that the Federal High Court has, the Federal High Court lacks jurisdiction to dive into matters that has to do with chieftaincy, and also because that powers lies within the states. But what the Federal High Court has reasoned was that the matter before the Federal High Court, the initial matter was that of fundamental rights that was filed, and there was nothing that relates to the chieftaincy in the fundamental right action. But it is also the law that where there are little fundamental right breaches that emanate from even a chieftaincy matter, the court will not even separate that fundamental right action that emanates from the original course of action that actually happened. Because the breaches of fundamental right happens to be a very minute aspect of the whole issues that has transpired in the whole matter. So that particular jurisdiction, for the court to have jurisdiction over chieftaincy matter, I feel that it is, speaking by what the law has said, the Federal High Court does not have jurisdiction over chieftaincy matter, but it has jurisdiction to determine issues that has to do with breaches of fundamental rights. Because when you look at when the former Emir to Sanusi was dethroned, he was also banished out of the state. He filed an action against the federal, the Kano State government for his banishment. And he won that matter because the matter was solely based on his fundamental right and freedom of movement. So, but if that is based on just fundamental rights alone, the court has jurisdiction, but the court cannot dive into issues that has to do with chieftaincy.
Okay, I want to take you back to the explanation you made earlier when you talked about what status quo implied. I did see an argument where someone had said that if you're looking at status quo being everyone returning to status quo, and that the ruling did say that it affirmed the amendment to the law. It did say that the ruling has voided Sanusi's enthronement because it came after the order, which you did say, but also that it had created a vacuum because it affirmed the law that sort of sacked Bayero. So what would you say, to clarify that, because it has said that it then leaves a vacuum in the Emirates?
Yes, you have actually said it, because there is actually a vacuum, and it is just within a period of time, and then that vacuum will be clarified, because the vacuum that has been created is very clear, because the law repealing what brought Emir, the Ado Bayero, has been repealed. And also the law that same law which created four Emirate has also been repealed. But when this law has been repealed and a new law has been made, and you said that the governor should not execute this law, there is actually a vacuum that is created. But that vacuum, there is a reason why the courts actually made that order for the status quo. Number one, when a matter is pending before the court and the subject matter is a bit threatening, the court will give an order that the status quo should be maintained, and then for both parties to stay action of whatever thing that they are doing. It has created a vacuum, quite all right. It has created a big vacuum, because there is a law existing on one hand, and there is an emir existing on a law that is not there. And the court has given an order that there should be a stay of execution of action. So I agree with you that there is a vacuum.
All right. So, now we're hearing about, plans to demolish the palace of Ado Bayero. I don't know if that will happen. But, what do you think happens next? Where do we go from here? And what would you expect would be the next steps, so that Kano also doesn't deteriorate into a complete crisis?
At this stage, I would want to say that despite the whole issue that has transpired, we have seen the news on the media that there are plans to demolish the palace, and then we have also seen news on the media that there is not a plan to demolish actually, but a plan to actually renovate. So we wouldn't know what is the true story of what is happening, but it boils down now to the governor trying to preserve the life and properties in the state. And I will actually advise that in this situation that we don't play politics with the life and properties of people in the state. It behoves on the government to actually apply wisdom and also caution in this particular situation to see that the situation don't degenerate from what it is now.
All right, and there's a lot that needs to be looked at in this case, and we're hoping that we can get some clarity in the nearest future. We just want to confirm, we've gotten a question here that says to ask you to please confirm when the law kicks in, when the law was put to effect. I think they're talking about the amendments, the Kano Emirates law.
Now, the law was made on the 23rd. The Kano Emirate law was made on the 23rd. But the timing of the court, the judgment of the ruling of the courts, and that of the time when that particular law was assented by the governor, there is actually a disparity in the timing. The signing actually came before the ruling of the courts. So, but it was actually done on the same day.
All right. Thank you so much for bringing this update. We hope that there'll be some clarity, and so that the people of Kano can move forward from this eventually. But more importantly, I think also, before we wrap up, the final question would be what you make of the multiplicity of judgments we're seeing, not just in Kano State, across the country. So we're seeing people, federal high courts legislating on matters that they have no jurisdiction over. We're seeing the same matter, two different standpoints and two different judgments. What do you make of it, the role that the judiciary has to play in this form of confusion, and how can this be rectified?
And clearly, from we have over the years, we have experienced a lot of conflicting judgment, and we have experienced a lot of situation that is an eyesore to the judiciary. And we have also seen situation whereby the politics has entered into the judiciary, and we have seen the judiciary dancing towards to the arena of the politicians too. So the whole situation that is happening is the judiciary dancing to the arena of the political leaders. So that is what is happening in the judiciary, and I think it's something that there has to be a caution, because if caution is not taken, a lot of virtues will be eroded and people will not have trust in the judiciary. Because if conflicting judgment can come from the same courts, and all levels of court can go ahead and dive into issues that are out of their jurisdiction, it signifies that there is a problem for Nigeria. Because as we all know, the judiciary is the common hope of the hope of the common man. And if the common man has lost trust in the judiciary because of the events that that has been going on, that is glaring, that that politics has entered into the system, then I think it signifies a problem. So my advice is that the judiciary should take caution, and there is need to call the judiciary to order.
Thank you. This has been, I mean, I almost would call it tradition, for a long time. It's not the first time that we're seeing situations like this, where we can see judges and we can see the judiciary get itself so involved in politics and stains itself, in so badly with these political situations. It's a shame. But thank you very much for stopping by. We will continue to follow up on Kano and see how it turns out. We'll speak with you again.
Having me on the show.
All right. Let's take a short break. When we come back, we'll be sharing with you what our top stories of the week are.
Welcome back. We are about to leave the show, but we cannot leave without telling you what our top stories of the week are. And my top story of the week, without a shadow of doubt, is Rivers State and the house of chaos it seems to have become. Now, there's been a lot of drama from the local government chairmen who have refused to relinquish power after the expiration of their tenure for 3 years. insisting that they had to be extended because the Rivers State House of Assembly, led by Martins Amewule, had extended it by 6 months. The governor, on the other hand, standing strongly against this, saying that, extension of tenure cannot be allowed. It's not allowed in the Constitution. And as a result, on the night of the expiration, 17th of June, when their tenure expired, he then gave a statement, addressed the media, and thereafter, he announced the 23 local government chairmen who were taking over and, swore them in as a caretaker committee. It has caused a lot of division in Rivers State. We've seen youths going to the streets to protest. We saw them bringing down the statue of the former governor of the state, Nyesom Wike. And we've also had guests who've joined us. Yes, they were joined by guests from Rivers State who've told us vehemently, clearly, that his tenure is over, but he still has 6 months, so he will not relinquish power until the court decides. They have tried. I would now refer to them as former local government chairmen, have tried to visit their office, but the police have not allowed them gain entrance into the office, stating that there are other people. Power has automatically changed hands, a memo that they are yet to get. We've seen the River State people react, a lot of them in support of Governor Siminalayi Fubara, some of them saying that Nyesom Wike's structure has been pulled down. Of course, former Governor Nyesom Wike still has his supporters. But in all of this, one thing that I have said and I will always say is that when the two elephants are fighting, it's the grass that suffers. We need to get done with all the politicking that is happening in River State and allow the governor the opportunity to actually govern the people, to bring about the change that the people of River State voted him in for, to ensure that the progress of the people is being achieved. Until all of this back and forth politicking and wrestle for power and supremacy of authority and demolition or building up of structures in River State, until we're done with all these conversations, we cannot prioritize the progressive movement of the people of River State. And that is what the people voted in the governor for. So yes, that is my top story. I'm wishing all the people of River State the best. I wanted to say may the best man win. He already won at the elections, I believe, but that's all.
Yeah, I mean, what one would hear when they clamor for these 6 months and, believe that, oh, maybe they have so much that they want to give in these 6 months.
What have they done in 3 years?
That they give in 3 years. Mm-hmm. You would hear them talking about, how, they still have, just like, the Akure local government chairman we spoke to yesterday. You would hear these things about how they have 6 months and they're not relinquishing power for the next 6 months, and you really believe that these people have a lot that they want to offer to, the people of their local government area in these 6 months. That's what they would make you believe, which is really not true, because you've had 3 years, and if you truly were responsible to the people of this local government, in 3 years you should have achieved what you want and be ready to pack your bags and leave on the day that your tenure expires. Hoping that the State of Assembly will give you an extra 6 months to do what we do not know is just being deceitful. And nobody needs, a native doctor to tell him, that this is what the truth is. You don't need those extra 6 months to do anything for the people of that local government. So what are you fighting for? What is the thing that you are really fighting for to hold on to that power for the next 6 months? If this constitution says that you have 3 years, what do you want to give to them in these 6 months now that you are dragging?
What they are trying to say is that in that 6 months, the governor must do elections. So until then, you cannot act out of order. So what can two wrongs correct a right? If there is no election, would you say that the right way to correct that election saga will be to extend your tenure, which is against the provision of the Constitution?
Absolutely not.
Wycliffe was it wrong when he said two wrongs don't make it right?
My top story of the week, I'll quickly rush through it, is with respect to Onanuga's response to the New York Times, where he said, of course, that they inherited a dead economy, and asking the New York Times to not be making derogatory comments, against the current administration's government and whatnot. And of course, the reaction, my own thoughts, to that is, are really, at what point did they realize that they inherited a dead economy? And to once again remind the current administration that Nigerians can see through falsehood. Nigerians can see through lies. The fact that Nigerians do not necessarily tell you to your face that, we know that you're not being honest, doesn't mean that they do not know. For many, many years, Nigerians heard about the 16 years of PDP. That was the excuse that the Buhari administration sold to Nigerians for the first 4 years. When it was starting their second tenure in 2019, they continued with the same excuse of 16 years of PDP and the rot that the 16 years of PDP brought. And so the new administration cannot come in now and then once again talk about how they inherited a dead economy as the reason why they may not be as successful as they promised. Nigerians do not have time, and I've repeatedly said it. Nigerians don't have time for these games. A lot of lives will maybe not make it across the next 4 years to 2027 to vote again. A lot of businesses will not make it to 2027 to vote. And so please, to the current administration, the Nigerian people want that you do your absolute best to fix the current realities of the average Nigerian. Spokespersons and media aides painting these pictures and telling these stories is not helping anybody. It's not helping the Nigerian people. It's not helping the government either.
We'll be back again same time on Monday. Breakfast Extra continues this weekend. Thank you for your time. Do have a wonderful weekend. I'm Olive MOD.
And I am Osaogi Ogbawan. See you on Monday.
Okay,